Welcome, Josie. Thank you so much for coming on the Right Boots page. One of my initial questions when I was so excited about the opportunity to interview you was that what was your first pair of football boots? Do you remember?
So my first pair of actual football boots with studs were probably, I think they were Pumas, and I used them as rugby boots as well. So they were quite chunky, thick studs. I think they were red and black. I don't have them. I wish I had them. I don't know where they are now. But yeah, I think they were my first pair. But previous to that, when I was like really young, I had a pair of little Umbro trainers, which I used to wear to any like football. Like, I'd just kick a ball around in them literally everywhere when I was about 5 or 6 maybe.
No, exactly. I mean, if you don't have a pair of Umbro trainers when you're younger, then you're not doing it right.
Exactly.
But no, that sounds great. And do you remember sort of any reason why you bought those boots in particular? Was it just because they're on the shelf, or was there actually some thought behind it?
Probably for the Puma boots, probably they were the cheapest, I guess, in Sports Direct. I'd assume, like, I didn't have much choice in it. I think I was like, can I get a pair of football boots for rugby so I can play rugby? Because when I was playing rugby, and they were like, yeah, okay, so they just got me them, and that was that for they lasted me a good couple of years, I'd say.
No, good. I mean, you have to look after them. And was there a time that you remember sort of distinctly that you started thinking about which football boots that you'll buy?
Yeah, definitely. It was in when I was playing with a boys team at my local club. All the boys were having all these different coloured boots and things like this, and I was looking and I was like, I actually really want like this pair, and I'm jealous of your pair. So then I'd like go back to mum and be like, I really want these boots. Like, look how cool they are. Like, I wouldn't get them straight away, obviously, or anything until my boots were broken. I wouldn't be allowed a new pair, especially when I was younger. So yeah, but when I was with the boys, that was around the time where I started thinking I really want like cool boots.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And then sort of you mentioned how you have to wait until your boots sort of broke in order for you to get some boots. And in that sense, were there any boots sort of at the time, maybe around when you had to wait for your boots to break, that you wanted to get but you couldn't, and now you sort of regret that you couldn't have them?
Yeah, I can remember a specific pair. I don't know what their name was because it was so long ago. I think they were yellow and purple, and I think they were Adidas. They might have been like F50s or something. But yeah, I remember looking at the yellow and purple boots, and I saw them on the shelf and I was like, I really, really want these boots. And I don't think I ever got them, but I did get a pair of F50s, I think maybe when I was maybe 9 or 10. They were yellow and black, so they were similar. So I got kind of what I wanted in the end.
No, it makes sense. I mean, with the boot world, colorway after colorway after colorway, and remake and blackout, and it's almost, you really have to be on it to get the new colorway. It seems that it takes only 2 weeks for something new to come out, which is an interesting change in the boot industry in that sense as well. And were there any sort of purchases that were inspired by a player at the time, or someone you really looked up to, that you're like, right, if I want to play like them, I have to wear their boots?
Yeah, not necessarily, because I think when I was younger, I didn't watch that much football. Like, if it was on the telly, like, I'd try and watch it, but because it was, I don't know, all I wanted to do was play football. So my main thing was playing football. Obviously, I had idols and stuff, like David Beckham, but I never took notice of their boots, really. It would probably be mainly their shirt, or the English shirt, or something like that. So yeah, not necessarily boots, but definitely players.
No, fair enough. And then in that sense, did you ever sort of look out for certain boots once you got into them? So like, right, I like this kind of make, this kind of brand, this kind of feel. Were there any sort of criteria?
Definitely. So when I got a little bit older and I think my first like proper pair of boots, which I think I bought myself, were Nike. I'm trying to think what exact ones they were. Probably a version of Mercurial maybe, and I love Nike. I always said I was a Nike boot person because you have that conflict between Nike, Adidas and Puma. I was definitely a Nike boot person, and I loved it. I think it was the slim fit of it, and like soft, so you didn't really feel the boot like very heavy on your feet. and that's kind of stuck with me throughout now. And I've only recently changed to Adidas for my molded studs. So, yeah.
Okay, so a bit of competition going there, and I mean, I say Nike, so I don't know if we can continue this interview now, to be honest.
Conflict.
But that's interesting in the sense that you use one brand for your molded studs, and for your proper studs you use a different brand. Is there any sort of reason behind that, why you didn't just get the same pair of studs in molded?
So usually I'd get the same, well, not the exact same pair. So basically a couple of years ago I don't really like wearing metal studded boots. I feel like they fit different, and they just don't feel the same as molded. So I used to try and get away with not having to wear studded boots. So I'd buy like the cheapest version of metal studded boots, and then the more like expensive version that will last me for the molded studs. So I guess that's really why. But then recently I've only just changed my molds to Adidas because I got given them basically, and now that I'm using them, I've probably had them for a couple of months now, and they're really nice. So I think I'll stick with Adidas for a little bit now. We'll see.
Okay. So it's interesting, and it's amazing how you can really drum up some brand loyalty, and still there could come along a boot where it's what you feel. And from there, did you ever sort of, when you saw some boot prices, did you always sort of wait for the discounts, or were there ever a time that you went like, right, those are my boots, I don't care how much?
It was always really wait for the discount, because I always had to buy my own boots pretty much, unless I'd ask for them for Christmas or something. But if I'd be asking them as a gift, then I wouldn't be able to get the really expensive ones, because I have 3 other sisters and 2 other stepsisters, so a big family. So I'd always go on ProDirect and look at the sale, and that would be where I'd choose my boots from, always the discounted one.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, ProDirect especially, if they're watching, please sponsor me. But if you could definitely get some incredible sales on there. Lovell Soccer, Unisport, they're all killer. And then, having mentioned Unisport, did you ever watch any boot reviews before you purchased any boots that you bought?
Mainly when I got older, and I guess YouTube became more of a thing, then I'd look at boot reviews just to see which ones might fit my feet better or things like that. And not just videos, I'd look at the descriptions and stuff. And on ProDirect, I think now they have the players that wear the boots, and why they wear them, what's the benefits of them. I'd always look at that and be like, hey, yeah, that suits my playing style, so I'd go for them. So that was definitely an influence.
Okay, interesting. And then was there ever a time that you would sort of really try to look at the differences between prices? So I remember times when I would look at multiple sites for the same boot just to make sure that I was really getting a deal. Was it that important to you, or was it just getting some form of discount? Okay.
It mainly depended on how much money I had. So if I'd saved up 150, then I'd be like, right, that's how much I've got to buy the boots. So I type in to Google what football boots, just broad football boots, scroll down the list and see what were in my price range really. And if they were full price at 150 and I could afford it, then I'd buy the full price ones. So it's really just what fits in my budget.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I mean, the boot game is a very expensive game. I mean, you're looking at some of the top range boots, £240 for boots that probably will only last 1 season, 2 seasons at most. So I guess what you're buying in that sense is the current trend, and also the current tech as well. And then sort of having sort of thought about that, is there a maximum number that you could see yourself spending? What's the most you would ever think you'd spend on football boots?
I've never spent over 100 and I think 180, so I've never gone above 200 basically. Potentially I'd stretch to 220 maybe, but if it's anything above that, I just think it's so expensive. And you would say it's an investment, but when you're training so much, they do wear down very easily. So it's kind of I don't know, you want the top quality, but then at the same time, you've got to be mindful that you're going to have to buy another pair, maybe half season. So yeah.
No, you're exactly right, and it's just so difficult. You see sort of Lukaku ordering like 19 pairs of boots from the same sort of classic retailer, which 19 pairs is ridiculous, and that's just only going to last him a season because he's playing 7 times a week for so long.
Yeah.
And I mean myself, I could definitely splash like £250 on some Mizuno made in Japan. Just that's actually like, I haven't bought them yet, but that's something I can definitely see myself buying. And then, having sort of explored the boots that you bought, are there any boots that have stuck with you in terms of being like lucky boots? So I don't know if you remember Jack Grealish when he was sort of getting Aston Villa back to the Premier League, and he wore some certain Nike Hypervenom Phantom 2s that were literally falling off at the seam like every ball he kicked, and he just refused to take them off.
I've got 2 pairs, I think. So the first pair, I got them actually. These Nike, I think they're Mercurials. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty standard. I scored my first goal for Wales under 17s in them, so they're definitely lucky boots. But they started breaking, like the sole started coming off. So I played in them for as long as I could, but obviously if the sole's breaking, you're gonna have to change. So I had to change. But then the other pair of boots that I really didn't want to have to stop wearing was more Mercurials, but as you can see, they're very worn down. But they were a pair that someone from Brighton, the first team, gave me because she could see my other boots were falling apart, and she said, "Do you want these pair?" So I took her up on the offer, and so I played in them throughout the whole of pre-season. But I think probably at the start of the season I couldn't really wear them anymore, but they definitely served me well.
No, I can imagine. I mean, those look really well used. Like, you can see the original images where they're blue, and then no, not anymore.
Definitely not.
And I mean, did you have any other boots that you brought with you while we're on the topic?
I do. I've got my current boots, which are, as I said, I switched to Adidas. Predators.
Yeah.
So they're really nice because they're really thin, so they fit my feet really nicely. And then my current metal stud ones are these Nike, but yeah, I haven't cleaned them. Sorry, I should have cleaned them. But I left them at uni, but I had the exact same pair as these in molds, but in blue and white, and they are literally falling apart as well. I wish I had them here because they're literally the same as what the Mercurials wear. And I had to stop wearing them as well, but they were one of my favourite pairs of boots, so definitely in the future I might go back to that style for my molds, but yeah.
I can imagine. And then that was sort of leading on to my next question, is sort of what is your favourite pair? Is there one that sticks out?
My favourite pair is, I think it's always got to be a Nike Mercurial. I don't have an exact boot that is my favourite, but a Nike Mercurial. I know these blue ones that are really worn, I always wanted them. So then when Danique said I could have them, I was like, really? So I got so excited, and obviously you can see I wore them so much. So I think they're probably my favourite. But yeah, anything really in the Nike Mercurial range.